2? Okay. So we have one new person, Sarah. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
And I'm just going to say last week, I talked about Buddha nature. And well, we looked at the Heart Sutra. That was a pretty complicated bunch of ideas about emptiness and so forth. And so I know it was kind of challenging. People's heads were sort of exploding a little bit. And lots of words, names like Avalokiteshvara and Shantideva and so forth. And in that class, I said that Mahayana, we're doing the Mahayana section of Buddhism, which is the school of thought that developed about 500 years after the Buddha died. And it is the school of thought that that is followed in Zen, like Japan, Korea, China, and Tibet, Bhutan. Anyway, Mahayana teachings and practices are designed to overcome fear, territoriality, and self-absorption by opening up to the illusory nature of everything and by cultivating compassion and wisdom. That's kind of like the main theme, right? Everything is empty is the way they say it, but what they mean is it's not what it looks like. It's there, but it's not what you think it is or something. And everything in Mahayana focuses on uncovering our inherent natural-born Buddha nature. So altogether, Mahayana practice is based on two underlying themes, wisdom and skillful means. And wisdom means the training in logic and analysis that helps to guide us toward an understanding of the true nature of reality. And skillful means are the practices that help us directly experience our true nature. So there's still a lot of words and concepts and ideas going on in Mahayana. People, Betsy and I and Mick are in a book group on Sunday morning where we're reading this classical text, and we read it's in verse form, and we read 4 verses at a time, and we go, oh my God, what's he talking about? Because it's very stretches your mind. But that's always part of it, is reading and trying to understand the fundamental teachings. And then there's also practice. So this is an article I read about Mahayana, and they said that wisdom or logic is necessary because if you're going to travel, you need to see where you're going, like a road map. So you really do have to do the logic of it, the thinking about it. But there's also a Zen saying that's words don't cook rice. So logic alone is not going to get the job done, and we also have to have methods. And the practices like the one we're talking about tonight, which is called Tonglen, Tonglen, are referred to as skillful means because we really are going to try to live in a state of openness and love and forgiveness and compassion. Really try to see all the time, 24/7, how others are equal to ourselves or even maybe more important than ourselves. And so, having heard the words in the cookbook, like the Heart Sutra that we studied last week, we then go to the kitchen and try to actually cook the rice. So there's a lot of that kind of practice in the Mahayana. I'm sure there is in the Theravada too, but I can't talk so much about that. But in the Mahayana, changing ourselves is the point of this practice, really changing how we relate to the world, to do it in a new way. So tonight, because we did all those words last time, we read the sutra twice, tonight I want to do something different. The textbook gives a classical explanation of Tonglen, but I thought we might actually do Tonglen. And I found a 12-minute audio file of Pema Chodron guiding Tonglen, and she's like the modern queen of Tonglen. She's an American-born Tibetan Buddhist teacher. So I was thinking we would just hear her, okay? And then we can talk, we'll keep talking. So let me do this. I practiced. And hopefully it'll work. Where is the share screen? Let me find that. There it is.
Yes.
And here's Pema.
It's covered up.
Well, you won't see it. You won't need to see it because
Oh,
it's
the book.
just,
We're
it's
talking
an
about the book
audio.
itself.
She was just asking about the textbook.
It's, oh, the book? Oh, here's the book if you want to look at it. We have those in our bookstore too. Okay, so let me put her, here's Pam, okay?
I'd like to begin right away by reviewing the technique
Can you hear it?
that was taught to the students of Trungpa Rinpoche, that he taught to his students. And this is the form of Tonglen that I have always taught, and that is taught here at Gampo Abbey. And I make this preface because there is actually, even though the essence of Tonglen is always the same, there's many different ways of teaching it, slightly different versions, some of which I'm going to present. So the technique is said to have 4 stages. And sometimes it's thought of as 3 stages, with the third part having like 2 parts, just to make it more Buddhist. And the third part of the fourth part has 6 parts. No, not really, I'm just kidding. So the first is taught as just touching in with stillness or openness of mind. Just touching in. And the way Trungpa Rinpoche used to express that is just a flash of absolute bodhicitta. Now, often when that is taught and that instruction is given, people really don't have a sense of at all of what that might mean. So Rinpoche suggested that when we're doing formal meditation, that we listen to the gong as a way of just looking straight ahead. Just listen to the gong at the beginning of the Tonglen as a way of just resting your mind, some kind of openness and stillness. So if you would all just sit up and look straight ahead and just listen to the sound of the gong as if this were the beginning of your Tonglen practice. You've been meditating. Maybe there's already some openness. Maybe the gong shocks you into some openness out of your fantasy world. But in any case, seize that sort of moment and look straight out and listen to the sound of the gong almost until it's gone. And when it begins to die out, then begin breathing in the quality or texture of claustrophobia, usually described as dark, thick, and heavy. Sometimes also say hot. Breathing it in. Breathing out the texture or quality of spaciousness. Clear, light, fresh. So one breathes in, claustrophobia in this form of a visualization. And one can breathe that into your whole body, taking it into your whole body, or one can breathe it into the heart. Sense of this more concentrated, claustrophobic, dark, hot, heavy, thick, breathing it into the heart or the whole body, either way. But in either case, when you breathe in, there's a sense of opening. Sometimes the image is used of the heart widening getting very, very large so that you could take in any amount of claustrophobia because you just expand as much as you can. So in a way, it's an exercise of opening the heart to what we usually want to push away. So visualizing the dark, heavy, hot coming in, visualizing clear, white, cool, refreshing going out. It's a very thorough sending out, like sending it out from all the pores of your body, radiating it out. And during this stage, your eyes can be open or closed. The Lojong slogan is to practice taking and sending on the medium of the breath. So that's to say you synchronize this with your breath. Your breath coming in brings in the heavy, hot claustrophobia. Breath going out radiates out, clear, light, bright, refreshing. And you just do this for a while, breathing in and out until it feels synchronized with the breath, doing this visualization. Also, the breath can be manipulated. You can breathe in very deeply and send out very fully, but always give the in-breath and the out-breath equal time. That's important. So you do that for a while. There's no designated time, but until it feels synchronized. And then you move on to what is considered the main part of the practice. And here you use a specific object. The other day I suggested that people do Tonglen for their mother. So it would go like this. Breathing in, you take away from your mother anything that you feel, and your mother can have already died. That's all right, it doesn't really matter. Just to have a visualization or hold the face or the name of your mother, taking away from her, breathing in from her anything that you feel used to cause her distress or currently causes her distress. And sending out relief in whatever form you wish. Which is to say, sometimes people say the word compassion or the word strength or the word happiness or something like this, contentment, and it means something to them. It's not just abstract. That word has emotional meaning. But other times that people find words too abstract, and so instead they will send something that they feel their mother that would make their mother happy, such as beautiful flowers or a lovely day or anything really. But the idea is to send something that would produce well-being and let your mother be happy and relaxed and free of suffering. So the in-breath really is the compassion breath. You're wishing your mother to be free of suffering. The out-breath is the loving-kindness breath. You're wishing her to be happy and at ease. So in this main part of Tonglen, no matter who you're doing it for, you always try to have it be as real and personal as possible. Now, I chose mother because in our culture, mother is often very loaded. And so I knew in a room this size, there might actually be very few who could really do it for their mother easily and with a good heart and goodwill. And there would be a larger number in a group in the West who would feel it much more complicated, anything from confused and kind of ambiguous feelings to actual dislike, which even that could be maybe too gentle a word. So knowing that, I said, if in doing the practice for your mother you find it blocked in some way by your genuine emotions, don't feel that you have failed. Instead, just shift the focus of the Tonglen and begin to do Tonglen with your feelings. So in other words, suppose you're feeling fear or anger, irritation, resentment, anything like this. Breathe in that feeling. Breathe it in completely. I personally like the idea of breathing it into the heart. That's how I usually do it. And making the heart very large. But you can also just breathe it into your whole being. That feeling, breathe it in and then send out relief. Whatever you feel is needed. But then we come to the important next stage, which is considered the expansion stage. And this is either considered as a fourth stage, or I actually like to think of it as part of the third stage. It's almost simultaneous as doing it for yourself or doing it for your mother, and that is you expand. So for instance, if you breathe in the troubled feelings that you're having and send out relief, then you start breathing in for all the people who are in this kind of conflicted relationship with their parents or loved ones, and sending out relief to all of them, so that your very personal experience that you're having right on the spot, which you might feel ashamed of, these feelings, but instead of them being an obstacle, they actually become the basis of Maitri for yourself and compassion for other people in the same boat. Likewise, if you're just simply doing it for your mother and it's a genuine open heart, you can feel the heart opening and you find it easy to do and actually rewarding to do, then as quite quickly you also do it for all the other mothers or all the other people that are in your mother's situation, maybe that are very ill, so, as your mother is, or very, very depressed as your mother is, or very maybe holding some kind of a grudge. We'll do it for all the other Jewish mothers.
Let's see. Okay. So, there we go. What was that? Yeah? So there's a couple of things I want to point out about what she did there. The flash of absolute bodhicitta at the beginning is just reminding ourselves that we have this Buddha nature we've been talking about, this big mind, that it's already part of us, whether we feel it or not. And so before we do one of these Mahayana compassion practices like this one, we try to remember that, remind ourselves that we aren't coming from a place of poverty and desolation and suffering. We're coming from a place of believing that we already have the wholeness and wisdom inside of us, whether we feel it or not. And then I wanted to talk about the claustrophobia. It's often a word that's often used actually to describe samsara and suffering, because in samsara we're completely absorbed in survival mode, selfishness, self-absorption. I think of a teenager who is unrecognizable to themselves and whose emotions are unregulated and who is struggling to figure out how to fit into the world, and they're just unrelenting self-consciousness, misery, self-consciousness. And so the opposite of that is the space where a person feels what Thich Nhat Hanh said last time, this coolness, peacefulness, relaxation, like a mature adult who's like gotten their feet under them and they're comfortable in the world. And so it's that distinction. So when we talk about space, sometimes we're just saying that your self-confidence is there. You aren't so self-absorbed or so self-conscious that you can't function, So another thing that Pema suggested in there was that resistance is natural, that people sometimes feel Tonglen is challenging. Sometimes people feel they sit out to do it and then they can't breathe. Or they don't want to bring in dark smoke into their body or to experience the pain of someone else. And that happens. It can happen out of nowhere. You have no idea it can happen, and it can happen. And so she gives that really good advice about if that's sort of happening, to turn the focus to that blockage itself. Wow, I can't even do, this is a challenge. And so I've also heard her say that you can switch from your mother to a puppy or a kitten or something that doesn't challenge you emotionally. And the point is to work with yourself wherever you are, to be kind to yourself, to take baby steps if that's what you need. So let me pause and see if you guys have any thoughts or reactions. Anybody?
I was struck that with the gong, it's not something that I've really paid attention to before or used at home or anything, but how focusing it was. I was surprised by that.
Mm-hmm.
How that gong and focusing on it, just like I was able to just settle and focus on it. I was surprised by that.
Neat.
It's cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
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 What is so I've heard of like loving kindness meditation, and it seems from the very little I've looked into it, that's just sort of kind of cultivating compassion for a particular person or something like that. And from what I've heard, this had like a separate thing, which is like focusing on the negative emotion as well, like drawing in. For me, it was my mother worries a lot, so I was thinking drawing in worry, and then she has this great laugh, so make you laugh is what I focus on the exhale. But what's the sort of purpose of the claustrophobia or the negative emotion tied to that?
Well, first I'll say, loving kindness is a separate emotion. I'm in practice, and we're going to look at it next week.
Okay.
Yeah, but so typically compassion practices have to do with acknowledging someone's suffering, and sort of like turning towards suffering rather than we usually want to turn away from them. So the way to be braver, if you will, or less, like selfish or whatever, is to kind of like touch in the suffering that, this person is having. And then in this case, we're taking it on ourselves basically by bringing it off of her. And she didn't talk a lot about it, but the idea is that you don't have it. It's not your suffering, it's hers, right? So what you have is Buddha nature. You have your peace and your calm, and you have a little bit of distance from whatever the issue is the person is having, their worries. You don't have those worries, right? And so you have enough, you are capable then of like extending to her a sort of psychic support, if you will. You could, let me take that from you, and let me give you how I feel, which is not, just free of that.
So when you take it, is it like Buddha nature dissolves it or something like that?
In a way, in fact, you're sort of not afraid of it. You're letting it come all the way in, and that's where kind of space comes in, because, like she said, you grow your heart, so it's big enough. There's enough room for let that stuff come in. It's not going to overwhelm you. Did you say something? No.
Always. No. Yeah, I mean, I got that instruction the same time you did. I always found like plugging into the kind of person and their difficulties, bringing that in, seemed easier than imagining it as dark black smoke, which is like, where it's like nose would wrinkle almost involuntarily, it's just like, and I never really thought too much about it but it does go part of what you're saying is that we have this reflexive, we throw up our shields in like the Enterprise when we actually have to get close to somebody's suffering or discomfort, and we kind of have a cool regard for it so that it's not too hot.
Doesn't penetrate,
Not too hot, you know. And this actually is inviting you to kind of feel that claustrophobic heat, you know. That, I mean, even that is sort of like, I mean, it's a pretty good metaphor. It's, but smoke and all that. I never think about smoky claustrophobia with my mom,
right?
but at the same time, I kind of feel that like resistance to actually doing that with the smoke and whatever, and the similarity to that with like having just a bit of a step away from getting, feeling too bad about her, feeling her pain, or however I would as a son. Which is but it seems to be kind of a one tenderizer or something.
Well, so it's like any other kind of meditation practice, really. Even basic sitting meditation practice, you think you're going to sit, as somebody says, have a seat and be quiet and still for a while, and you think, how hard could that be? Right? That sounds fine. And so what you're immediately confronted with is what's going on in you that isn't that way. Same thing with this. This is like designed to go, yeah, I'm a kindly person. I care about people. And then it's like, but not like that. Wait a minute.
Can we go back to sitting now?
Close. Yeah. No, thank you.
That was a very vivid image for me, claustrophobia, because I had an experience with claustrophobia in my time. Extreme experience. And it was in a dark cave.
Oh.
So I'm going to always associate that with Tonglen now. It's that place. I can imagine.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what the book said about all of this, because it was, I'm presuming people read it a little bit. So the book was written by a teacher who died 500 years ago. So that's the very classical, he's from the period of time when these kind of practices were first being promulgated. And so it's very classical. And Pema got it from her teacher who died in 1987. And then she's been teaching it since then. And you will notice that her version is more modern than the book. And I want to say this is an example of how Buddhism changes over time. It is the same exact thing, but it adapts and modifies to the world it's in and the people in that world and how they need to hear about things. And in the classical system that's in the book, you start close to home again, as close as possible, and they also start with their mother, because apparently Tibetans all had great mothers. No problems with their mothers. That's right. They're shocked that we like, what? Your mother? What? And so, but apparently you start with this mother who was just the most giving, loving, wonderful thing in the world, and you can't imagine her suffering, and you want her to not have any suffering, because she's so wonderful. And then when you got that going, you expand it. It describes in the book, you go from her to your friends and people close, your village, basically. And then you go to strangers, you expand it out to have the same compassion for people less interesting to you. And even people you don't like, even enemies, you start to sort of bring them into. And then eventually you include all beings, all sentient beings. And this is, again, this idea of like just breaking through all the barriers, just dropping and penetrating and letting go of all the barriers that exist between us and other people. And it can work really well. And it's not that you do Tonglen for a month and suddenly you're like fine, but it's more like you learn about it. You learn about your resistance and your protection and all the things that you're doing otherwise, and that evolves and changes you. So, as Pema said, the point is to expand your heart, make it bigger. And I think when you make your heart bigger, you can stand more. You can take it. You can I'll just say for myself, it's terrible to report this to you because it's embarrassing, but we lived in Berkeley, and Berkeley is swimming in homeless people. My son used to ride the bus to school, get off the bus, and he had to walk 2 blocks to the school, and he was giving away his lunch money every day because there would be people lined up, to get the money from the kids, and we gave them sandwiches. He gave his sandwiches away, and I was like resentful and I don't want to look. He's just I didn't say get a job, but I can't say that I was. That this is back when I'm starting all this stuff, and now it's like here I see I'm just like I want to talk to people. I say, what can I do for you? Whatever, and I'm just not afraid of them the way that I was then. So I don't know. I think try these things and see what they do for you and see what you think of them. Some people don't like Tonglen at all. If that's the case, if this doesn't make any sense to you, just try some of the other things that we're going to talk about. So, in the book, on page 163 of the book, it explains that the motivation for this practice is to become a Buddha because as a Buddha you can help more people. Buddhas have more capacity to help people than ordinary people. And it says, now I'm quoting, "At this point in the meditation, you should ask yourself, do I really have the ability to completely fulfill the needs of all sentient beings? And the answer is not only does an ordinary being not have this ability, even a bodhisattva, at the 10th level, there are 11 levels of bodhisattva. Anyway, doesn't. So then, who does? Well, the answer is only a fully and perfectly enlightened being, a Buddha, has the capacity to completely fulfill the needs of all sentient beings." And then it says in the book, contemplate this idea deeply until you gain an unfeigned experience of the aspiration to attain the state of complete Buddhahood as the supreme method of benefiting all living beings. So here again, we're talking about you can have compassion, you can have this, whatever your motives are on the path. In the Mahayana, the motive is to become a Buddha. And that's because you can do so much more as a Buddha than you can if you're not a Buddha. And so don't settle for, well, I'm more patient than I used to be, so I'm a good Buddhist, or whatever. Just keep going, keep at it, even if it's hard. And at the end of the chapter, he reiterates what we heard from Thich Nhat Hanh last week about emptiness, that emptiness is actually full of potential, and that beings who fully realize emptiness, who fully realize that emptiness, have the power and insight of a Buddha. So, as I'm quoting Thich Nhat Hanh now, he said, "The true nature of phenomena is a state of coolness, peace, and non-fear that can be experienced in this very life in your own body. It is nirvana. Just as the birds enjoy the sky and the deer enjoys the meadow, so do the wise enjoy dwelling in nirvana." And I think that needs to be said, repeated, because that's kind of audacious. Say, I'm going to be a Buddha, here I go, watch me go. And so, you know, kind of like, it's the kind of thing you have to talk yourself into, and keep talking, reminding yourself, like, this is serious, this is manageable, I think, it's supposed to work. And I need to keep at it, keep going, keep pushing further. I'm going to say, Anna, who's right there on the screen, she used to lead a practice group that I came to, and she talked about your edge, that Buddhist practices, I hope I say it right, Anna, you can stop me if I don't, but that Buddhist practices push you to your edge and encourage you to keep going beyond your edge, keep expanding what you think is the edge of what you can do. And that is my experience of it. And some people might not be ready for that or want that, or like, you know, and that's fine too. Again, like Pema said, you take what you're up to and work with that, and be kind to yourself, be gentle. There's no pushing in a mean way. There's no like forcing anything. But there is a sort of like, you can check in and sort of go, oh, I'm uncomfortable. This is making me uncomfortable. That means I must be at my edge, right? And so let me look at what that looks like. Where does the discomfort come from? Where is this? What is this pushing me up against? You know? And I think, especially in the case of Tonglen, that a lot of times we have lots of compassion for the people in our tribe or our village. And it's when you start trying to go outside of that you start, but really, do I feel that way for whatever? And it's good to see what you're doing, you know? Work with it. So, I don't have a lot more to say, but yeah, this is another thing. In the chapter, he makes a distinction between absolute or ultimate bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means Buddha nature. It means enlightened mind. He makes a distinction between absolute or relative or ultimate and conventional. And this distinction, which runs throughout the Mahayana, it acknowledges that although we already contain a pure and fully developed mind of a Buddha, that's the absolute, we also experience the world through a mind conditioned by experiences, by thought systems and emotions. That's the conventional or relative bodhicitta. And so we're not saying you have this good mind over here and this lousy mind over here, right? Both of them have Buddha nature in them. But one of them is colored by what you had for breakfast, who you're mad at today, what your mother told you about your body shape or whatever. It's got all these conditions. And those are real. And those are like, you have to relate to those things. You can't just ignore them. And so the whole path is about, you know, like she did in this practice, you flash the absolute, you remember that you have it, and then you kind of look at the relative, the, stuff, the messy business of living with people. And the analogy that we have been using in this class, we talk about the big blue sky and the clouds that cover it. And so the big blue sky is the absolute, and the clouds is the relative, conventional. Anam Thupten calls it the conditioned mind and the unconditioned mind. So there's a mind there's who you are that is conditioned by what you've been through and what you're doing right now, and then there's one that is not conditioned by those things, if that's a better way to think about it. And so throughout the Mahayana, we are constantly working with those two things, and we sort of acknowledge that they are different, and the experience of things is different, but we work on them both simultaneously. And in my own experience, I will say that compassion is the most powerful tool that I've ever found for cutting through my own confusion. It's like when I'm totally blown away. I'm like, kind of right now, I wake up and I see armed people in airports or something, and I just want to cry and break down, and I think, those poor guys, you know, it's not their fault, they don't, you know, and that just like makes all the like outrage and all of that. It's not that that's not real, but it's not the point, or it's not what can you do with it, or whatever, and certainly like not being human is not the answer, right? So, almost always, no matter what I'm going through, I can think, I wonder if someone else is feeling like this right now, or I have a story from a guy here, Long, who was getting all these terrible medical diagnoses, and he was in the hospital for testing, and he was just terrified. And he just started thinking about looking around all the other people in the hospital. I wonder what they're dealing with. I wonder what they're dealing with. I wonder what their diagnosis is going to be. Some of them may not live till tomorrow. And that just like brought him back, you know, he could be himself, didn't change his circumstances, but it changed the way he inhabited the circumstance, right? So I love the Mahayana. I love all these like, let's grow our compassion, right? It's really good for us. It works. And that's it. I need to hear from you guys now. I've been doing all the time.
So, you know, I didn't start out as a Buddhist. I started out as Southern Baptist, and I've come a long way.
I think there's a few other ones here, yeah.
Okay, good. And so, you know, it in my historic faith tradition, it's being Christ-like, you know, and being humble and being, like you said, compassionate, you know, empathetic and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that if that works, that works. You know, there's no, I think I said it, I don't know if I did, but I want to say that I said it to you, that Buddhism doesn't have the exclusive right to these notions of being good people and all of that. It happens to people in all different ways, and you know it when you see it, that someone is walking the walk, right, or the talk, or whatever, and they're full in themselves of this things that we all want, being good people and kind people and present and available to people and all of that. And that can happen not only from Buddhism. But I think that what's unique about Buddhism is that we don't have we don't have a Jesus to call on. It's like, it's on us all the way, so or on us and everybody else.
And I'm tempted to say, we don't have babies, there's no babysitting.
No babysitting.
But that faith tradition prepared me well for this.
Okay.
You know, I guess was my point.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
Yeah.
You know, we were reading for our Monday night class, Christ night, and she talks about, you know, all of the different traditions that people have. The important thing is to have a path to follow.
Yeah.
And that's the powerful thing, right?
Yeah.
It's nice being non-theistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because that was so judgmental.
Liberating.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of hard problems you don't have to figure out anymore.
Yeah.
Some of us.
So, yeah. I mean, I sort of pegged this talk to address that we've spent like weeks looking at the earlier form of Buddhism than this one, which was involved in liberating yourself from your own confusion. And again, I want to say that her teacher, Chogyam Trungpa, who's also my teacher, and her, you can't do this stuff until you have your own act together. You have to work with being able to be in one place, being able to sit inside of your skin and not run away, right?
Yeah.
And so all of those wonderful trainings and everything in the Theravada are what gets us here to this place. But for some people, eventually they get to this place where they need to go further. And I think you will find in the world, the Mahayana people are oftentimes are caregivers, or they're people already working with other people, and they need skillful means for doing that. And so I've heard from healthcare professionals, for example, who, if you're a surgeon and you're going to cut somebody open, you have to have a certain emotional distance from them.
Yeah.
But that's not too much, right? You also need to be in touch with them and connected and so forth. And so these practices that work with that level of, how close do you get and how do you relate in a mindful Buddhist-like way, with other people, are very, very helpful to social workers, school teachers, nurses. So you will find here at EBS the Mahayana groups, like we have a Thich Nhat Hanh group on Thursday nights that is full of therapists and nurses, there they are, like, working with that. And it just fits, for people that are...
Like in the pandemic, I remember seeing a research study about compassion practice. And they looked at healthcare workers and how when they witnessed the suffering, of people in their care, right?
Yeah.
And when they did the compassion practice, and that, let me see a clear difference in people that did the compassion practice, and being able to tolerate that pain and have the strength to do with something.
Something to do with it, so that it's not just like
Yes,
something
you're
that
doing
just,
something.
it's not
Yes.
just weighing on you.
Yes.
I know, and I think that's where the teachings about emptiness help too, that if you were, it just, there's something about like this bigger view,
Yes.
this like aerial view of everything. Yep, this person is dying or whatever is happening to them. And I can be there with it because I can hold this viewpoint. Yeah. Well, next time we're going to talk about loving kindness or Maitri. They also do a lot of Maitri practice in the Theravada.
That reminded me of something. In her talk, in her meditation there, she talked about giving Maitri to yourself and compassion to others. So I'm trying to wrap my brain around the meaning of Maitri. It's been a while since
Well, it's
What are you saying?
Maitri.
M-A-I-T-R-I.
M-A-I-T-R-I. Yeah.
Which is also meta.
It's like metta.
Metta, but it translates literally as loving kindness, right? Loving kindness.
Loving kindness.
And it's just like and I know that what she means is that you don't do these practices with a heavy hand on yourself, with you do them understanding that they are difficult, and you do it with love for you, with love for yourself, and appreciate where you're at and what the challenge might be for you, and you don't bully or push or drive yourself in any way. It's not going to work. It's just going to backfire. So.
Right, first you have to be that magical Tibetan mother to yourself.
Exactly. Exactly.
Possible mother.
That's right. Those mothers. Yeah. Well, my teacher there, my current teacher, Chucky Nima, he keeps saying, just be kind. Just be kind. If that's all you can do, just be kind. And the Dalai Lama has said, my religion is kindness. That's what we're talking about. And you know kindness when you see it. You know when you're not being kind.
It's kind of interesting that, especially starting off with, if you can get over the hurdle of U.S. moms, but, the extending of giving them what they need or want to make them happier, giving them the conditions that they grew up with different somehow, and that they are healed from their trauma and that kind of thing. That's not the hugest leap in the world, right? I mean, it's if you're picking something that you care about, she'll say, if it's a dog, it's a dog, and do a dog because this is about your own heart. But it's almost easier to do that than directly apply Maitri to yourself, because your grievances and your history and your wounds are still kept very fresh, and it's hard to kind of treat yourself as a third person,
Yeah.
And so I can understand the psychology of it's easier just to go ahead and project it out, which I go on about this idea of we just talked about on and on about emptiness of other, emptiness of self, and it's like, well, who's out there exactly in this case? And then suddenly we're going, plunging into the relative realness of people hurting, and we're projecting in a way that when I was thinking about, I did not come from a religious background, so the idea of saviors and some kind of role model that was out there to be there for me calls for a lot of projection. And there's magic to that, because clearly those models of theists, the theist model, are really successful, very motivating, right? I mean, and they can be really wonderful in some hands, in other hands, questionable.
Yeah.
But we are encouraged to kind of channel that kind of, putting that outside in a way to treat ourselves, which is a really curious thing.
Yeah.
Which I understand at a gut level, but just mentally it's weird.
It's a technique, that visualization, they call it, of doing this thing with your imagination. And one of the things I notice over the years with Buddhism is that, especially the Tibetan version of it, is that we're actually visualizing constantly, but we aren't aware of it. You're heading to a dinner party, you're imagining what it's going to be like when you get there, what's going to happen and all that. We're constantly dreaming up what's going to happen. So we're just using that particular skill to do something different. The other thing I wonder if someone's ever written a book about why Tibetan mothers are so great. And I wonder, right? Did they have the altitude, but did they have more freedom and more rights, the women in those cultures? I mean, our mothers, my goodness. My mother, when she wanted to divorce my father in the 1960s, she could not get a credit card in her own name.
Right.
She was hopeless, helpless. No wonder she was angry,
I think their lives were a heck of a lot simpler and harder, and so people had to work together. Because think about that, they didn't have to deal with credit cards.
No.
But still, it was still not a matriarchal culture by any means, it still had, that. But
But I don't know. I don't know the answer. I've been around a lot of Tibetans, and they're amazing. But I don't know what I could say about them. I hope somebody someday will say, where it comes from. But the women don't seem like they're subjugated in the same way that Western women are. They just don't. They seem to have a place in the community where they're in charge. What?
That they are revered.
Yeah.
And the people, you never hear a bad word about your mother,
No.
So that's, so.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But if your mother has died, if you had a complicated relationship with your mother and she's died, it's just my random thought about it. Your relationship continues.
Yeah.
And I like my mother a heck of a lot better now than I did before she died.
Yeah.
16 years ago, but I've come to know her better and
Yeah.
understand her pain,
Yeah. Well, again, I think we can go back to this idea of emptiness, that when you're relating to people, you have all these ideas about them that turn out to just be totally fabricated. Right?
Yeah.
And they themselves are not anything like that. Something I was listening to, they were talking about how children read their parents before was that in the reading in our book group Tuesday night? No. Babies, before,
They read the room.
they read people. We have this ability, but then we start thinking, we start learning language, and we start defining things, and all these concepts come up in between.
So with the babies, more like
Babies, it's direct.
Yeah,
It's just direct. But they're definitely reading. They know mom different from dad, and they know a lot more about mom than mom thinks they do, and stuff like that.
My new kitten did that when she first came to us.
Yeah.
My friends were sitting around the room one day, and the kitten came in the room. She came and joined the circle. She would look at people when they talked. It's like she was just trying to think, where am I? And what is this place?
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Been reading a lot lately about that infant stage and that connection you're talking about, and how much the parents, especially the mom, does the regulation for the child. So it is a reading. It's absolutely the child, taking something.
Yeah.
But it's a symbiosis. It is working together.
Yes.
To be stable.
Yes.
And they learn that they're isn't mother, that when they're upset, mother
Can help.
can help.
And if they don't do that, it's gonna be rough.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes you can.
It's gonna be
Right.
rough.
So we're just about out of time. We are kind of out of time. But thank you for tonight. And next week we'll talk about loving kindness. I think I have a Pema. I can find a Pema. She's pretty good, huh? And I would recommend her. You'll find her all over the internet. And she's got books too, and guided meditations galore. And they're good.
Is there a signed reading for next time?
Yeah, it's chapter 15. It's very short, and it's from Pema, and it's called Loving Kindness.
You're going straight through the book?
Pretty much. Not exactly. We haven't.
More so now.
More so now. Cheryl goes through the book. Doug does it. It's okay. It's good. Okay, so that's it. Thank you. And,
Thank you.
Yeah. So, thank you, Anna. Thank you, Karen. Take it easy. I'm gonna close the room now, okay? Bye-bye.